Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Conscious Grief series. I am with somebody very special today. This is Paula Majeski. Paula is a facilitator of healing consciousness, and she is also an artist, as you can see her amazing art in the background. So welcome, Paula.
Thank you for having me. And great to be here. Love to talk to you today about this.
Yes. Well, I wanted, you'd been on my heart so much to ask you to be interviewed, because if it wasn't for you, Paula, I probably wouldn't be here putting this together.
Happy to have a hand in that. Sometimes we take each other to help us in these directional things.
We met. Paula was a reader, or still is, at the University of Santa Monica, where I was studying spiritual psychology, and Paula suggested that I base my second year project on death and grief. Well, no, she said on the death of my father. Do something around the death of my father. And honestly, at the beginning, I thought, I wish I hadn't gone to speak to that woman.
I totally get that. Like, what? What are you talking about?
And then I let it integrate for a few days. And then I thought to myself, actually, I always want to talk about death, but nobody else does. And then I was like, this could actually be a really fascinating subject. And that was how it began. And I'm realizing through my groups now that a lot of people who come to a grief group, not everybody, but a lot of people are sort of having awakenings in their grief, because death makes us question, what are we doing here? Where do we go when we die? What's my purpose? All the big questions, and how this entwines with soul journey, which is the spiritual psychology part. So I would love for you to talk a little bit about, what does that mean? What is a soul journey for people who may have never heard that expression before?
Well, to me, the soul journey is about coming here to learn, or coming to Earth, incarnating here so we can learn through our experiences. And a lot of times our experiences inform what we're here to do. Right? So you just mentioning that, your dad dying when you were young, right? Really puts you on a different trajectory of learning about death and grief and loss of the father, if you will, right? Mm-hmm. So if your soul agreed to come here to learn about grief so you could help others with it, and about to live more consciously through your experiences, no matter what happens, and help people reframe and reset and learn and grow and deepen in their loving through their experience, you would have an experience like that. And I have an experience too. When I was young, at 11, my first love died in a car accident. So I started to learn about that as well, so I could help other people as they learn through their experiences as well. So it's like souls know what we're doing. Like, to me, a soul comes here with a very clear direction and path, and we create the experiences that we seek to learn from. And some of them have a lot of intensity to them, and sometimes the depth of the loving is the thing that, to me, dictates the depth of the grief. Right. So in that context, it's like you come in and as a young person have that experience. You had a lot of love for your dad, so you're going to have the experience of a lot of grief, or depth of loss or missing him. And, one of the things I think that people could most take away from a loss of someone is like, I'm going to experience the grief of that, losing that person, to the degree that I love them. Right. And sometimes we focus on grief as a way to continue to maintain the loving relationship with them. The hard part is that we don't have the reflector back of the loving coming back. So that's why grief can be so difficult, because we're used to having the conversation with the person and loving and having the connection and the knowing they're there and have that mirroring back to us our own loving and kindness and beauty, whatever the good things are. We also may reflect back how we're annoying, but that's part of it's still part of the learning and the sense of connection and oneness that we all come here for. And we're all here to learn through loving and connection. So having it pulled away at a time when we don't think it's the right time, that's where you get into where the soul and the human being have a different take. The soul, is open to all experiences and knows that there's learning available through everything. The part that lives on the planet, it's much more difficult for things, especially with things like grief, because what we miss is the day-to-day reflection and a place to put our loving. Like, to me, that's one of the biggest things, is having a place to share loving. If we don't have that and that gets taken away, that's probably the biggest determiner of the level of grief. It's like, I no longer have a place to put my loving every day. So that's one of the antidotes from my view, is finding ways to share our loving into the world and the human experience here now, so that we have that reflection and the connection back. So there's a lot in what I just said, but yeah.
There is. And I love what you were sharing about having a new place to put your loving. Before we talk about suggest ideas of what you could do, I was just thinking, for people right now who are really experiencing deep pain and deep grief and tragic circumstances, for them, they might be like, I would never have picked this. I don't understand what.
I saw this great cartoon, and there's this old woman looking and going, I wish I looked at that soul contract a little bit more closely, but we make those choices at the soul level where we don't have the human experience going on, right? We think my soul can learn more through these experiences, and maybe a lot of them even. I have a lot of close people in my life that have died over the, and I'm, not like I'm young, but I've been around a lot of death. Mm-hmm. Who knows? Why did I choose that? It's a great question. It's a great question, but in a way, it's also to, how do I interpret that experience rather than deciding it's a curse?
Right. So how do you interpret?
Well, that's the key here, right? How do you interpret the experience? Because souls don't usually interpret that way. We don't have a right, wrong, or a good, bad interpretation on things. It's the human part of us that lives on this level that goes, this is good, this is bad. I want more of this, I want less of that. Souls don't think like that. They don't think. They're in the experience. They're fully here. And it's time to go. It's time to go. Mm. So if you look at it that way too, that souls who are leaving, my friend, I had a really close friend whose birthday was yesterday, and she would have been 59, but she died at 47 of a heart attack. Boom, gone. Right in the middle of everything. Mm. Who am I to evaluate her choice, the soul's choice in that? Did the human part of me like that? No, not at all. I don't like that at all. I still don't like it. However many years later, the human part of me doesn't like it. But does my soul go like, that was her plan, that was her path, that was her timing? Mm-hmm. So it's like, how do you sort the two things out and look at them from both perspectives? It doesn't mean you dismiss the human needs of connection and have the experience of grief and miss them and allow yourself that full expression and full experience, but also to know that there's another perspective that is not against us. Mm-hmm. Right? If I look, there's probably been 5 or 6 of my closest friends who died suddenly or quickly from something that someone might be like, what happened? No idea, sudden death, things that, when I think about it on the human level, I really miss them and their presence and being able to pick up the phone and call them. but on another level, I have a deeper connection to them now because they're always available.
Mm.
I don't have to find them on the phone, right?
Yeah.
I can call them present. I can have that connection at the soul level where the connection really is anyway. The other thing is our model of how we look at the world is that then the human level is like loving as a give and take, right? Mm-hmm. Rather than a sharing, mm-hmm. than being present with each other. And if you really look, you'll find, I think, that the connection in the soul knows of the depth of the connection, regardless of whether the person's here or not. The human being is like, but I miss them sitting here with me at dinner. Mm-hmm. I miss picking up the phone, or at this point, we're texting them. And some of these people have been gone so long that they didn't even have a cell phone. So it's like, but the connection piece is transcends all that.
Yeah.
It transcends all of this. But so how do we take care of the human that misses the day-to-day contact, that needs to find a way to share their loving now, that's uplifting again, that's connected, that has reflection back, right? If you think about it in human relationships, that's the biggest problem in relationships, when we disconnect or withdraw or withhold or whatever we do based because of whatever's going on, where we lose that sense of they have my back. Mm-hmm. I feel connected to them on the human level, like they're standing next to me, looking in the same direction, same intention, same goals. They're there for me. They poke holes in my bullshit, and they will do whatever is necessary to help me have more of the experiences I seek. Mm-hmm. So that's what we miss. We miss that, like the cheerleader or the connector or the someone who makes us tea. Right. Do you know what I mean? Like something that simple. Mm-hmm. Like I miss that, they would bring tea, like you're sitting with someone, you can go, can you get me some tea when you go in the kitchen? Like it can be so simple that triggers this grief, mm-hmm. of that. I'm missing that human being present with me here that I know has my back.
Yeah, it's making me think of something happening earlier today. I was cuddling my dog and talking to him, and I was thinking a lot of my mom and like really wishing my mom was here to enjoy him. And I was telling him that, and I was saying, oh, I bet if she was here, she would get one of you, like get her own little dog like him. And I was just like wishing so much she could be here today. And it's almost like my grief has shifted and changed. Like I feel like I sort of miss her more as the grief gets longer, honestly, as I get older.
But it's back to, like, to me, when you describe that, it's not like you're not hurting because she's gone. You're wanting to share more with her.
Yeah.
Like there's more you want to share. Yeah. And that's a lot of what happens is the grief comes up because we have so much love we want to share. And we didn't be like, oh, I could have shared more, or like we start to evaluate it on the right, wrong, good, bad model, rather than we can still share like you did this morning. Like you say to your dog, you share about the person who you miss, you're still bringing them present. Mm-hmm. Like you're still sharing about them.
Yeah.
And you're still connected to their loving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you're feeling the sense of connection and loving, which is what we all want. Mm-hmm. So in a way, the human part is going up, but you got taken away from me. Mm-hmm. This is so difficult and as a human experience. But really, we're all going to have that experience. We're going to be the one that's going to cause someone else grief at some point.
Yeah.
We're going to leave, and then they're going to be going, but I didn't get to finish. I still want her here. I still I still want that connection. I still want to know I can pick up the phone, mm-hmm. or text, whatever that is, to go, and people say that all the time. It's like, I picked up my phone, I called them, and the voicemail's still there, but they're not, and it's, it's how do we take care of the human part of us? Mm. How do we find a path of connection in a way, it's a new way of service, because you were being of service to that person, and they were being of service to you in your soul journey. Right? That's really ultimately what we're doing with each other.
Right.
You know, and they took a different class, right? They graduated early in some cases, right? And to celebrate that graduation, no, we go, no, you left without me. I want to go too, you know? We're all going to go eventually. We're all going to graduate eventually.
Yeah.
But how do we find a way to take care of the part of us that's still here?
Yeah. Will you answer your own question for me, Paula?
You know, but that's really it. It's like, how do we, you know, acknowledge and appreciate them for what they've brought to us, and rather than experiencing grief and loss, if we could find a way to move into, like, I'm so grateful I had them in my life, and this is how, you know, I may, you know, in most cases, people go, I took them for granted in a way, and now I realized more what was being extended to me that I maybe didn't even receive that was available.
Yeah, and I think, you know, for me, taking that class in Los Angeles, it was like I had to go to a different place, a different country, have time alone to actually reintroduce myself to my parents, because I had cut the connection in a sense. Like, I know it wasn't, but I'd not, you know, I'd sort of compartmentalized my grief. And I think that the more in touch with my grief I got, the more connected I became with my dead parents, the more my heart opened.
Well, yeah, no, that's definitely the case. I mean, and that's part of it, is that as human beings, we find strategies that work, right? As a young person, you know, I'll use my own experience. When I was 11, I didn't know what to do with that.
Yeah.
So I shut things down, and I compartmentalized things, and I put them away until I reached a level of maturity in my consciousness, or had a greater understanding of what it was, so that I could relate to it and complete the grief, or move through it.
Yeah.
Right. And look at the impact it had on me and my decisions from that point on. And now when I can look and go, is there anything I want to do differently now that I've healed, or feel more at peace with the change?
Yeah.
You know, and it's still the soul understands, the human being doesn't necessarily like it, you know, and the choice that you made to look at it from a, like, knowing that it was time to look at it from a different perspective, to come into the soul perspective with it, to look at it from the, you know, what you call conscious grief, right? You like consciously looked at it and said, like, what is this trying to teach me now? How can I learn, and how can I integrate what I've learned to help myself and others, to be of service, and reestablish those connections, and open myself back up to connecting.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the process of grief, it tends to be, especially in times when we don't expect it, it becomes a block first, and then we reopen. So part of the grief process is reopening to the loving.
It is.
Because we don't want to open to the loving if it's going to be pulled away again. Like, there's a fear of that. Right. So what you talked about is, like, you found a way to navigate day to day until you were able to come to the place where you could look at it from a different perspective. You'd reached a level of consciousness and awareness where you could look at it from a perspective of, why would my soul choose this, in a way, in one level, but how can I more open myself back up to the loving that I want to experience? You know, and there's nothing wrong with experiencing loving through your connection with someone who's not here anymore. Like, that's another way to strengthen your loving, and also to bring it more fully here. Use the support to open yourself more fully to loving here and now.
Yeah, and it really does. Like, I feel that, you know, more and more, that I feel grateful for my life, where I didn't for so long.
Well, because sometimes the attachment to the person who left, like in your case, parents, that's a primary bond. So in a way, it's like we get conditioned to think like, I shouldn't be okay because they're not here. Like there's a attachment to like, I don't want to overstep that connection. I want to push past it because I don't want to forget them. Like I don't want to disconnect from them. So the grief becomes the lifeline rather than the loving being the lifeline, right?
Yeah, I think I see that a lot. You know, people feel that if they are making progress,
If they're okay.
Yeah, they feel that that's sort of like a disloyalty to their...
Like there's a betrayal of some kind, yeah.
Yeah.
But, you know, ultimately, you know, the only betrayals are self-betrayals. Right? So if you're betraying yourself in order to force yourself to do something in any situation, but this is just one of those, like you're trying to constrict yourself and block the flow of energy, you're usually not on track. Usually will cause more challenges, right? Rather than being vulnerable and open and like experience the loss fully. It's okay to feel loss. It's okay to feel grief, but don't let it restrict your loving with yourself or others.
Yeah.
Allow yourself to be supported and loved in that from the people who are gone and from people who are here. But there's a tendency to withdraw, withhold, contract. And it's part of the process. But the thing is, it's like be like a clam, open the shell, you know? Don't clamp it down, you know?
Yeah, and we have to keep encouraging ourselves, like to begin with, because the automatic reaction is to clam up because you think, gosh, this is horrible. This is so painful. I don't want to ever experience this again.
Right. And that's, you know, that judgment is part of the, you know, judging everything, you know, anything, as you know, right, is one of the biggest things to indicate our experience. You know, most people are master. I mean, I can judge with the best of them, you know, because it's a reflex of trying to take care of ourselves. Yeah. But it doesn't do that. It doesn't give us the result that we're looking for. And that's the difference between the soul look and the human look. The human look will tend to kind of cordon ourselves off, try to protect ourselves. When really, ultimately, vulnerability is the protection, like that openness. You know, I've heard it said that, you know, the perfect vulnerability is perfect protection. Right? Yeah. I attribute that to John Roger, but I don't know where he got it from.
Oh, he did. Right?
Yeah. But that to me is in the first couple times I heard that, maybe the first 100 times I heard that, I was like, yeah, that's bullshit. You know, like, no.
Can you repeat that again? Sorry.
Perfect vulnerability is perfect protection.
I love that.
So being wide open is the place where the energy flows. Right? If you look at yourself as an energy being, and then if you connect with someone else and there's an energy flow back and forth, right? It's when we're in that place of openness and vulnerability and connection that we feel the most alive.
Yes.
Right. And nothing can, like, someone has your back. Like if it's spirit, it's spirit. If it's someone in front of you, if it's a group of people, if it's feeling like you're alive, embraced, and held and loving, that gets taken away. The key is to stay in that place of vulnerability and openness, because then the grief can move through. And then you can stay connected to the person without having to shut yourself down. And that's where the problems usually start, when we shut ourselves down and out and then lock down on it, because we're stopping the flow of energy.
Exactly.
So the way to get through grief is to move the energy, talk about it, share about it, write about it, help others with it. Like what you're doing. If you have some experience in this life that you walk through that was difficult, helping others walk through the same thing is one of the greatest ways to be of service, because you know the experience, you understand, you can be with someone who's had the experience in a way that someone who hasn't can't.
Exactly.
So in a way, we have these experiences so we can help each other, right? So you wouldn't be who you are today, doing what you're doing today, if you hadn't had lived the life you lived.
Yeah.
It's just part of the process
Yeah.
of evolution and growth and learning. You look at it from a reincarnation standpoint, and who knows how many lifetimes you've been having challenges with grief or challenges with loss. And
same for you, because you've also.
Oh yeah, no, exactly. So it's like, how many times have I done this?
Yeah.
So that where I am now, I have a deeper understanding that I can share with others. I have access, because I believe we have access to other lifetimes, like in our soul consciousness, where we can access, like, I don't know if you've had the experience. I'm sure everybody has at some point where you know how to do something that you have zero training on how to do. Like where did that come from, right? And I've learned to trust that in my life, because I've had so many of those experiences where I'm like, no idea. They're like, people say, how do you know how to do that? I go, no, don't you? Like even as a little kid, I had that, but it's one of those things where we have infinite resources inside, and we have the infinite ability to receive spiritually, to help the part of us that lives here on the planet and help extend it to others. And I think that's what our experiences can and help us help others. So people who are experiencing a lot of grief, that's why these are the groups that people go to, and the courses, they're helping move the energy too, helping bring forward the loving in a great way, because you can't talk about someone you lost that you're experiencing grief about without sharing the loving that you shared.
Yeah. Right.
You're able to self-reflect the loving back through talking about the person who's gone. It's a way of re-anchoring the loving. That's what you're trying to do. So how do you stay in that frame and know that that's what you're doing? Like, I just love them so much, and I wish they were still here. But on a soul level, I understand their soul's time is time to move on. Like, they're on to the next class.
Yeah.
They're in a different curriculum now. And who knows where they are? You could check, ask them, hey, where are you? Like, you can start to learn about where people go when they die. Like, how quickly do they come back? Do they have to come back? Was that really the end all completion, or are they coming back?
Yeah, and I think a lot of people do, suddenly want to contact mediums and have readings and connection, which is so profound. But then, like you say, it has to come back to us, and we have to figure out how we're going to continue on the human level.
Yeah, how do you keep that loving that you share with them? Like, don't disconnect from it because they're gone.
Right.
How do you stay connected to that loving, because you were sharing that loving with them? Like, and we are love, right? That's the other thing. It's like the ego thinks we give it and receive it, and it's like, no, we are love, and then we share it with each other. It's like having a meal with someone else and they're not there. Like, how can I share a meal with you? You're not here, right? And I know people who've done this when someone's left the planet. They actually set the place at the table for the other person and have the same conversation. And just as a way to know, like, I still have the ability to connect with them. Like, really own that you are a multi-dimensional being. You can be connected, not just here. It's not just the give and take of this level.
Yeah.
It's actually this part of it is such a minimal part of the loving, but the part that has to live on the planet is the part that misses it.
Yeah. Because I was speaking to somebody about, like you say, like, we've just had Thanksgiving, Christmas, and ways that we can continue the connection. And some people were talking about laying a place at the table, and then somebody was talking about eating their favorite foods and things like that. And I suppose I hadn't, because it was 20 plus years ago now that my parents died, we didn't really think about those things. And I think it's just like really wonderful that, people are getting more creative with how they mourn, and I don't really like that word very much. Like, but it's a really important part of, like you say, keeping the connection.
Well, that's what I would say. I would maybe find a new word for that, about how, you're maintaining that connection through sharing about them. Like I still have my grandmother's green Fiesta bowl that she made cookies in.
Oh.
It's the magic cookie bowl. If I make like, I don't eat sugar anymore, but it's like, if I make cookies in that bowl, they are exactly like she made them.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter how I do the recipe. They taste like her cookies. Right? My brother's like, "Can I have the magic cookie bowl?" I'm like, "No, mine." Because he likes to make cookies all the time. So when he's here, he makes cookies. But it's those little things to me. Like, anytime I make something with that bowl, I think of her.
Right.
It's like, and it's funny because and we always joke that, well, the batter stays in the bowl when I do it, though. When she did, it was all over everything.
I'd be like, me too.
And she usually had the phone on her ear while she was trying to do something.
Oh, yeah.
Back in the day when you had to have a phone on your
before
ear,
our AirPods.
the 40-foot cord going all over the place, right? So, it's like having those things where I still feel like she's right here. Like, I'm not giving up my connection to her. My parents are gone. And any of those people that I started to think about it before this call. It's like 10 people that I was very close to that died just suddenly. And then there's the people I've worked with through their process of dying that I've known quite well too, because that's quite an intimate process.
Very.
Working with people, but it's in a way that work is similar, because when people know they have a terminal illness and I'm working with them, the purpose of it is to complete whatever they can complete here on this level, right? So when they leave, they're freer, or they can complete the illness and stay. But the path is the same, right? We're here to learn, we're here to evolve, we're here to complete things. And some people just complete in different timing.
Yeah.
And it's not against us. That'd be one of the biggest things. It's not against you that your parents died when they died. Your spouse died when whatever that is. It's like whatever people are looking at, it's not a reflection of you.
Right.
To me, that would be one of the biggest things. It's like, it's that people say all the time. It's like, Spirit doesn't give you anything you can't handle. Right. And then that speaks to your soul's strength.
Yeah.
The human part goes, but I don't want to handle it. As someone said, I wish Spirit didn't trust me that much.
Right.
To give me all these things to handle. But I look at it and go, what a brave soul to come in and sign up for that class.
Yeah.
Right. Especially parents whose children transition.
Yeah.
What a class that is.
Right.
To have someone that you are so like they're part of you, and then they're gone. It's so difficult.
It is.
But they're acknowledging that the soul came in and that's part of their path. It's a hard one. Why would they do that? So, but this is what deepens the connection to yourself, is having those inner conversations. Go to whoever your spiritual guidance comes from inside. Talk to people about their experience, so that you use the experience for your connection, for being part of the oneness. You're never separate from someone who's gone. We're all connected. All souls are connected on all levels.
Yes, that's what I'm really hearing, is the connection, and the importance of that within, with others.
Well, my understanding, and we've talked about this in other contexts, but our connection with our spiritual source is our first connection.
Yeah.
That's when we come in, and that's for first connection, and then we connect with ourselves, and then we connect with each other.
Yeah.
And that's the best order to keep them in. It's not the easiest task.
Not the easiest. Why is it so hard, Paula?
Well, because our whole conditioning has been your value comes from what you give and receive.
Yes.
Right. We get into that duality based dynamic. And that's part of the whole how we learn, though. We learn through contrast. So if we didn't have the duality and the contrast, we'd all be just like, sitting around eating bonbons, in puppy piles. There would be a lot of, things, soul evolution, learning, growth, because there's nothing to compare it to. There's no contrast. So this whole setup, the whole world setup, the human experience setup is that we're here to experience all kinds of things. And we can learn from it the first time we go through something, or like I look at it from my case, it's like there's so many people that have passed. I'm like, what am I trying to learn? Right, over and over and over. I'm like my spiritual special ed. Like I keep getting the same lesson over and over again. Like I'm repeating the third grade. This is my class I'm taking, and how do I honor that that's a class I'm taking, rather than try to change the curriculum in a way.
Yeah.
So I make fun of myself all the time. It's helpful to me.
That's good. It's good. You have to keep our sense of humor around.
Yeah, no, that's the other thing. Is like, appreciating the humor in the person that's gone.
Yeah.
Like appreciate the lightness of it, how they made you laugh, or because usually those are the things we really miss. Is the ways we were uplifted by them, and the reflection back to us. Right. About how ridiculous whatever it is we were, whining about. I'll speak for myself when I'm whining about something. Some of the people that left were the ones who were the truth slayers.
People closest to us often are.
A little poke. Really, Paula? Like give me that impetus to like, okay, got it. I can lighten up about it. Yeah. So missing that, so, but finding a way to, so I do that more for myself now. So I learn from them. Like, and that's the other piece is it's kind of a more subtle form of it. It's like, what did they give to me? And how do I learn to do that for myself? How would I respond? Like I asked oftentimes, how would they respond to this situation I'm in right now? What would they say? And make me laugh, and they would have a comment that would make me laugh. So I try to connect into that part of me that they brought alive. Yeah. Right. So to me, and humor is a great entry point for that. How would they make this funny? Yep.
And making me think of the little bracelets that what would Jesus do? So somebody in one of my grief groups, she was saying her parents, she kept thinking like, what would my mum do? What would my mum do? She was saying, and she said, oh, I think I might get a bracelet made. And by the end of the 11 weeks, she sent a picture to the group, and she had a little bracelet made with what would my mum do? And I was like, that's
great. But see that, but that's it. It was like, so in a way, it's just awakening the part of you that they were cultivated. They were helping you cultivate, learn, and open up and be more vulnerable. Like, how are you more vulnerable within yourself? How do you open up to new people? And sometimes people are taken, like if they move on, because it's time for us to open up to more people. We put all our eggs in one basket,
Yeah.
Now the basket's gone,
Yeah. And these experiences can lead us to so many new people, right? That we suddenly feel connected to that we didn't before.
Yeah, no, there's so many things that it moves, and it moves us. It helps us find the energy to move ourselves in ways that we hadn't. It can stretch you in ways that you haven't been stretched before.
For sure.
And that's what we're here for. So in a way, if you can use the experience for that.
A spiritual workout.
Spiritual warrior, like bring it on, how do we get more from this? And sometimes, I think that we think it's going to break us. You know, these things will break us, and it doesn't break us. It opens.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the eggshell. You know, it opens the eggshell.
If we allow it to.
It is a choice.
Yeah.
And that's part of it, is to maintain that sense of, I'm choosing this. I want to experience this. I want to open more while I go through this. And allow for the dignity of your own process, though. Allow yourself to have the grief. Allow yourself to experience the loss. And how also look for ways to learn and grow and write or create. Like, to me, one of the biggest keys is to be creative in these times.
Yes.
Because you tap into a level of your unconscious that just is open. That, you know, especially if, you know, when you're connecting with someone who's in another world, like they're gone from this planet, you can connect into where they are, and that's where a lot of creativity comes from too. So that's another way for me for the healing process, is to expand and open, so that I stay in the place of openness.
Yeah.
Even though things are challenging, I stay in the place of openness.
Yeah.
And that to me is one of the biggest keys to any experience of loss, is how to stay open. And the grief does push that button, moves the energy. Right?
I like to ask people what they would describe as conscious grief. I mean, it feels like you said a lot. I think everything you've said sounds like conscious grief. I don't know whether you could wrap it up in a small...
Well, yeah. The you know, if you look, conscious is like bringing consciousness to grief. Like, how do you fit into the learning model? How do you look at how am I learning? How am I expanding? How am I growing through this grief process?
Right.
So using it for you and not using it against you would be my take on that. Not going against your nature, which your nature is loving.
Yeah.
In order to process the grief. So to me, conscious grieving would be how can I stay in my expansion, in my loving, in my connection to myself and others while I walk through this. And that includes the person who left. How do I stay connected? And I think that's, you know, one of the things is the fear of losing the connection.
Yeah.
It's not possible. It's not possible. You have access anytime you want. So having that consciousness around grief of like, I want to really fully embrace my loving and be part of the oneness and be part of the exchange and keep the energy flowing. That's how I would frame that up.
Well, I love that. I love everything that you shared. It's just amazing listening to you, Paula.
It's a lovely conversation. Yes.
It's really, I could just sit here, and I know that we could talk for at least 2 hours.
We do. We like to talk. Yes.
But we'll have to do it again.
Yeah. No. Absolutely. You know, and this is a great example, right? We're talking about a topic, right? But it's bringing us both into greater expansion. And connection, and bringing forward more of each of our loving in the conversation. I feel like it's opening us up.
It is.
So to me, that's the key right there. You know, so thank you for the opportunity.
Well, thank you, and thank you everybody who's listened. And
yeah, thanks for listening, everyone.
I will share your information at the bottom of this screen.
Okay.
Yeah. So
lovely.
Thanks everyone. Bye bye.